Hi guys, this is Dana with Designs with Dana. Thanks for joining. Stay tuned if you want to see some really cool backgrounds that I'm going to make for card making. And I will show you one of the finished cards, and then upcoming videos I'm going to be using all of those that I made today. So be sure to subscribe for lots of upcoming great content. Everything organization of craft supplies to card making and so on and so forth. So what I'm doing here on the first step, going to speed this up, making a lot of card fronts, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and going through and cutting those from white cardstock. So we're going to be coloring the white cardstock. So Catherine Pooler is my go-to for inks. I'm going to start with Cranberry Fizz and Rocking Red here, and it's a girl. So you'll see to the left there of the screen the color wheel from Catherine Pooler. I'll be sure to link to all of the supplies that I'm using today. What I'm really doing is just inking all of those card fronts. You will see occasionally here I need to re-ink, and the refills are available through Catherine Pooler, and right now actually they are half off. I think she's going to a new label, no changes there, just the label. So look how juicy it is here. So the ink, when I re-ink, it's just amazing how vibrant these colors are. So that is the Rocking Red there, and next up will be the It's a Girl. I wanted on the red, there wasn't enough contrast between those two reds, so I wanted to go ahead and have a softer color here as well. And really always try to think about not having any waste, so that ink that I'm leaving there on my media mat, my silicone media mat, I could just wipe that off, but I certainly don't want to do that because you'll see here how I'm going to use that ink. So just spray a little bit of water on it, and then take a blank card facing and just soak up that extra ink, put it aside and let it dry, and it'll make for a really interesting card. Next is Drive-In and Serenade. I love Drive-In. I love purple. So the Drive-In is the darker purple, and Serenade is one of the newer colors that I'll be using next here, the lighter purple. It's just so pretty. And you'll notice the tweezers there, you know, those definitely help to try to keep the ink off of your fingers, and obviously I am not a pro at that yet. So practice makes perfect, and I will get there. So again, just adding a little water here to pick up that extra ink, and again, that'll make some really nice card backgrounds for cards. My next color here, I'm going to use Bellini and Tutti Frutti. So I figured out here on this step to go ahead, I should have thought about that earlier, but use the lighter color first, just to make sure there's no bleed over onto your stamps. So this is here Tutti Frutti, such a pretty color. And again, just speeding this up because I'm doing the same thing over and over again here, and to make these card fronts. So you'll notice here as I move on to the next, I've figured out that I can really just take that card and just, without the tweezers, kind of scoop up that extra ink. The next is here Cummerbund and All That Jazz. Cummerbund is such a pretty color there. That's one of the newer ones. And again, just love Catherine Pooler. She's my go-to for any supplies. Always my first stop shop, and try to get anything I can through her. I'm really excited to see how her company's growing, and just a great team there to follow and watch. So here, All That Jazz, such a pretty deeper color. Don't be too concerned with the stripes there that you see. Once that dries, for the most part, that's going to go away, and it's really covered with the technique that we're going to be providing here. And then what you're going to see next is green, my favorite, Garden Party. One fairly, no, that's not a newer one. But look how pretty that light green is. Again, don't be too concerned with the streaks there. Once it dries and we go over it, with our next technique, you're not going to see it really anyways. You'll notice there that I re-inked with the grass skirt. This is probably one of my favorite colors. But look, just a little bit of ink refill goes a long way, and just look how vibrant the color is there when I re-ink that ink pad. Again, green is just one of my all-time favorites. Here you'll see I just figured out, hey, just take that card and just swipe it through there. And really it kind of did a lot better than trying to mess around with the tweezers and that sort of thing. Be Mine and Flirty Fuchsia are next. Be Mine is such a pretty pink color there, you'll see. Again, needed to do a little bit of a refill. These two colors are the ink minis. You'll see that I have some of the ink minis from Catherine Pooler, and then some are the regular full size. You know, I really enjoy both, so it's kind of nice to have a collection of either one, just depending on how you're using the making cards or how you're using them. So here's what we came up with. All of the different colors that I'm laying out here. I think these turned out really well, and we'll move on to the next step. So what we're going to do here is these background stamps, again by Catherine Pooler. I'll go through and explain the names of them, but this is how they come. I bought this little mini binder from Amazon. I'll link to that. It's a great way to keep those stored. And we're going to start with the background stamp. The name of it is Swatch Background Stamp by Catherine Pooler. Here you'll see that I'm using my mini to get that background exactly where I want it every single time. Another technique I also picked up from Jennifer McGuire. I'll link to her videos. She's my all-time favorite YouTuber so far. Just love to watch her videos, every single detail. But underneath the red card facing there, what I have is a sticky mat. So that just makes it a lot nicer there. I just cut it, when I ordered it, they're larger sheets. I just cut it to the size, and it holds that card facing down. Again, and you know, the practice makes perfect. I really kind of fumble a little bit here with adding this the powder here that I just inked it up with the Wow embossing ink, and then just going over it with clear embossing fluid and heating that up with the ink tool, or the heating tool. And you'll notice here that next I'm going in with the dark. I'm taking all of the color schemes, using the dark colors first. Here I used my powder tool, and that really just makes sure that your embossing ink only sticks to, or your embossing powder only sticks to that ink. It just kind of cleans the surface. So again, putting the embossing powder here over it, and then working that embossing powder across, just like you used to do with the glitter in school, back in grade school with inks. And then taking my heating tool and heating that up. Tweezers, when it's bent like that, the tweezers are kind of nice because it keeps you from burning your finger with your heating tool there, and it just makes such an interesting background. So it turns all of that powder into such a pretty background there. And what I figured out there is I really should be using my powder tool before I put it in my mini there, and that way I'm not getting powder on my sticky mat. So again, you'll see I'm kind of figuring out as I go here a little bit better technique as I'm working through this embossing powder on this tutti frutti color background, and heating that there to turn it to the clear. So I'm going to switch backgrounds now. This background is Chatterbox background, Catherine Pooler. It is so cool. It just has all the little bubbles, speech bubbles that say hi and hello, have some hearts, hello there, hi there, just super, super cute. So you will see as we heat that up how that looks. Now using my powder there and inking up the same background but on my green. It just makes it so much easier to do all the steps on multiple cards at one time, just to save yourself some time. See, I'm getting a little bit better there with the powdering and then sprinkling that off. The green, it looks so pretty, this background on the green. And again, the heating tool just gives it that really nice finish. Here I'm kind of showing you how it provides that little bit of a shimmer as you melt really that powder with your heating tool. Super cool. Okay, what we're going to do next here is my last color, which is the Flirty Fuchsia. I'm going to switch to this background stamp, which is the laundered linen background stamp. Really cool. You'll see how this looks. Really has those lines across. So the embossing ink there, pressing that down, going to cover it with the clear embossing powder. You can see getting a little better here with my technique. So again, practice makes perfect. And look how cool it is when you just heat that up. It really kind of melts it and just makes it such a neat background. So here's all the ones that we made. Now this next step here, and I will go over this in a little bit more detail. What we're doing is, what you'll see that I'm doing is I'm covering the lighter color cardstock. So I match the cardstocks up and put a piece of tape on the back. You'll see that again in a minute, just made kind of like a little hinge. And then what I'm doing is wetting the darker cardstock with my water bottle. And when you open it up here, just run it through any die cutting machine. You're not cutting anything, you're really just pressing it down. And really what you have here is kind of two card fronts. Now you'll see that I'm adding the tape. That's just that medical tape. You can see there in the screen, I'll link to that, but just covering up the lighter color, misting the darker color down, putting it in my sandwich for my Gemini Junior, running it through just to get that nice and pressed together. And then when you open it up here, you'll see that you have the two different sides. So it really just presses that pattern onto the lighter. So again, adding that tape, making the hinge there, covering up the lighter cardstock, spraying the darker there, closing that up, and then running it through the die cutting machine. I'm sure you guys can hear my dog. That's probably going to be part of my videos always. He's always right under me, a big English bulldog, always snoring, so he's a happy guy. Love how this orange turned out, but you know, and again, you don't be too concerned with how it's not perfect on the lighter color. It makes great interest in backgrounds. So that's the Flirty Fuchsia, and you'll see how that came together. And again, some of them I think turned out I like a little bit better, but I have learned that any of these backgrounds, as I use them in future cards, are going to provide such great interest to a background. You can always just do the background stamp, of course, with your embossing powder and clear embossing powder and use the heat tool. But I think this technique just provides a little bit more added interest to your card. So going through here and showing all of them. And then, so go ahead and we're going to make a card here. So I'm going to make a card back. I'm taking that piece of paper there and scoring it at 4 1/4 and folding it over to make my card back. And I'm going to use, you'll notice I'm going to chose to use the blue there background. So I've used my glue and glued that, cut that down a little bit, the blue, and put it on there. So these stamps that you'll see that I'm using, I think they're super cool. It's Just Because. Again, I'll provide the link from Simon Says. It's just so awesome how these designers are getting so creative with how they're doing things. So this is the first time I've used a stamp set like this, where you stamp all of the images at one time, and all these really neat sayings. So this makes it really cool to make multiple cards. And then the other, I'm going to end up using that circle there, Just a Note, and they come with the matching dies. And see how cool this is? You just line that die up and run it through your die cutting machine, and you're going to get all of your die cuts at one time. It just makes it so much easier just to set those aside and have those ready for cards. So you'll see here I'm running it through the die cutting machine, and you have all of your sentiments here at one time. Super cool. I'll link to these little clear trays that I'm going to show again in a minute that I got from Amazon. Super cool to kind of organize things as you're have all your die cuts there when you're crafting. They come in a pack of 16. So here I'm going to cut. I want to put a little banner across the bottom. You always look at it and think, oh, I wish I would have done something. I wish I would have made a little flag on the end of the white piece of paper there to make that more of a banner, but I can always do that on the next. I will also link to my favorite glue, which is the Barely Art glue, and I have figured out that the little tip there that I got is so much easier than the pen that comes with it. So adding a little bit of 3M double-sided adhesive here to raise that up off the card, and there we have it. So see how that just provides so much more interest than, you know, having those lighter color spots in it. But stay tuned for some upcoming videos. I'm going to be using all of the card backs that I made today to show you how you can turn those into cards, and really appreciate you watching, and be sure to subscribe for upcoming great content.